Hi, I'm Adrian, and I'm a Salesforce consultant here at Salesfix. I'm also a Salesforce Lightning Champion, Salesforce MVP, Brisbane Women in Technology Community Group Leader, and an ANZ architect for the Ladies Be Architects program.
Hi, everyone. I'm James. I'm a solution architect here at Salesfix. Don't have as many accolades as Adrian. Just recently completed doing both sides of the architect pyramid, though. So application and solution architect.
So today we're here to talk to you about Salesforce certifications. So when James and I were asked to put this presentation together, we sat there trying to think about the things that we could talk about. And it kept coming back to the fact of, I guess, how many certifications we had. So I am 11 times Salesforce certified, and James has 14 Salesforce certifications under his belt. So it's probably the thing that we're most fluent on. So I guess in saying that, we wanted to kind of kick straight off and just talk about some of the certs that we did have. So I guess, James, you've got 14.
Yeah.
What was the hardest one, you think?
So as I just mentioned, I've just recently finished doing both sides of the architect pyramid or the architect exams. And I did definitely notice as soon as I started doing those architect exams compared to others I'd done in the past, there's a bit of a jump in how hard they are and the type of question you get. So certainly those are harder. Out of those, there's it's kind of a running theme across the community that the identity and access designer, I think it's called, exam is a tough one to crack. I think the reason for that is that it touches on a lot of technologies that you just don't use every day. So you don't practice them that much, so they're not at the front of your mind, I guess. Did you say funnest or just the hardest? I think you said
First.
Yeah. So that's the hardest one. That's the hardest one I've done. Yeah. How about yourself?
The hardest one I've done is probably not even one that I've actually done yet. So the hardest one I've done for me, not being a developer, is PD1. Some people know, some people don't. Failure is always an option. And I say that with experience. I have failed PD1 4 or 5 times now. So I'm taking a long step back. I'm doing PD1 boot camp at the moment, trying to figure out if I can take it or when I should take it again. It's the last cert that I need to do to get application architect certified. So
I should mention, I don't know if you said it, PD1 is platform developer 1, so it's more of a dev focused exam. Yeah.
I'm the dev. So you mentioned it before, but what was the funnest one? What did you have the most fun studying for or doing?
Yeah, because it was kind of linked because, as well as them being the hardest, I found the architect exams to be the most fun to study for. I think that's because they kind of start to go into what's under the hood a bit, what's under the hood of Salesforce. So how it's built underneath a little bit. So you get a little glimpse into that, and it starts to, I guess, make you better understand how Salesforce is built. So therefore, enables you to design better solutions yourself. And I guess you kind of find out a few things in there, things that you've seen in the past, errors that have cropped up, or problems you've had. It kind of starts to explain why some of them have happened. So they're not just sort of mystery Salesforce ghosts that you could never explain. You start to understand a few of them. How about you?
Mine's the opposite of you. I say the opposite because most of the architect ones that I've done so far have been beta exams. So people that haven't done beta exams before, every time Salesforce does a big release, they redo their exams and they come up with about 150, 160 questions, and they need to narrow down which ones they're going to put on the actual exam. So the people doing the beta get to answer all 150, 160. So I think last time I did data architecture, it was 163 questions over 3 hours. So Architect's not my favorite one, just because they've been betas. They probably would have been fun if they weren't. And you also don't get to find out how you do straight afterwards. So I got to wait for a month and a half, 2 months to work out if I actually passed the exams or not, which I did.
Yeah.
So the funnest for me was probably App Builder, and even studying for it. So App Builder, for those that don't know, it's more, I guess, not on the administrative side, but the building side of Salesforce. So I found that really fun to study for and just do, because it gets into, I guess, the nitty gritty of just the building application architect or application stuff without being as hard as your architect exam. So that one's pretty fun.
Okay, so something we really wanted to do today was to impart some of the knowledge we've learned over the years in taking Salesforce certifications, and help everyone out there with a few tips and tricks, ideas for how to study, where to get study resources, and things like that. The first thing I guess we should cover is what exam you should take. Or if you've already taken some, what's the next one? So for me, the first one everyone should take or needs to take is the Salesforce admin exam. It's sort of foundations of Salesforce, and it's definitely the first stop for anyone on the certification journey. So I would have done mine. I definitely did that one first, and I would have done that quite a few years ago now, sort of 9 years ago. How about yourself, Adrian? Is that your first one?
Yeah, it was. Sticking with my theme of failure is always an option. I took it twice in 2014 and failed. I was brand new to Salesforce. They'd shoved me into ADM 201, so flew me down to Sydney, did it, told me I had to take the exam when I got back. So I got back, took it, failed, because none of my jobs involved price books or anything like that, forecasting. So it was the first exam I took, but I actually took about 2 years in between taking it the first 2 times and taking it before I passed. I had a nice little sabbatical, but definitely the first one that I passed was the administrator exam.
Yeah. I guess it's just the first, it's this kind of, it's like Salesforce Foundation, and you pretty much have to do that one first before you start looking into other ones. What would you say? So once you do get that one under your belt, what would your advice be of where to go next?
I think it honestly depends on what you want to do. So for some people, my next exam was app builder.
App builder, yeah.
I was talking about dev too much. Platform app builder was the next exam that I took. For me, it was kind of the next logical step to take afterwards. However, some people might be more developer orientated and therefore choose to take Platform Dev 1 after your administrator exam instead of doing a platform app builder, because they're a little bit more comfortable with. So, I mean, I'd like to take a step back and think, my thought was, well, what do I want to do? So I thought originally was just doing admin-based stuff. So I thought my administration exams, things like my Salesforce administration administrator, platform app builder, and then I was also using Pardot fairly heavily. So then my next thing was, okay, well, I'm going to get Pardot specialist certified.
Yeah. So I think that's it. I think, so you mentioned developer there, and I just thought of something like it might often a developer path. If you're a coder, a developer, is PD1, Platform Developer 1 might even be your first exam before the admin. I do see that happen quite a lot. However, I would say if you are a dev, doing the admin is the core admin exam is pretty important as well. It really supports the knowledge from the PD1, the Platform Developer 1, and I think it is important for everyone to get that exam. But I think, from there, it kind of becomes either a vocational thing. So what's your job, and what exam makes sense based on what you're doing in your job, or what you're interested in. So myself and Adrian work for a consultancy. So after I did, I did admin, and then I did advanced admin. But then after that, it became very much the consultant. There's consultant exams. So Salesforce provide, I think it's Sales Cloud Consultant, Service Cloud, and Community Cloud Consultant. So being
profit and education now as well.
Okay, yeah, there's 2 new ones.
Service, and they just keep going.
Yeah. So after being a consultant in my job, it made sense that I take those ones off. So that was kind of the next thing I did, and then I guess my ambition from there was that I wanted to become an architect, move into the Salesforce architecture space. So it just made sense to start picking off some of the architect exams and working towards that.
Yeah.
Which I think is the path you're on at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah. So I mentioned when I started that I'm an ANZ ambassador for a program called Ladies Be Architects. So part of that, I guess, really sparked in me, or part of the reason that I do that is because I was really interested in, after hearing from people at Dreamforce about the architect journey, certified technical architect, application architect, and system architect. Something that really interested me, and I do like a good challenge. So I looked at both sides of the tree and thought one of them is really developer focused, so that's really not for me straight up. But application architect, I looked at it and I saw that was something that I thought was achievable, to test myself, prove to myself I could do it. And I was just really interested in becoming application architect certified. So that was, I guess, the next thing for me. I've had little stops along the way. So like you mentioned, James, our jobs. So part of our job is to get some of those extra consultant certs. So I did data architecture, and then I maybe took a little sidetrack and did part consultant and nonprofit consultant. Then I went back and did sharing and visibility. So still on that architect path, but I've taken little breaks along the way to make sure that I'm doing those ones that work does want us to do as well.
Yeah. So I think, overall, I think there's a couple of foundation exams, that the Salesforce admin being the key one. And if you're a developer, maybe that platform developer one is a real key foundation exam you need. And from there, it's what interests you, and maybe your current job, or where you want to go with your current job. So it's just looking at that and then looking what exam best suits. So have you got one you're working at towards right now?
Still platform dev one. We're taking a virtual boot camp for platform dev one that Salesforce is offering to study.
So virtual boot camp, that's a Salesforce, they provide that?
Yeah, so Salesforce was doing a discount and stuff on it. So always keep an eye out on the Salesforce community. There's a lot of groups that they advertise them. But yeah, Salesforce is doing a boot camp at the moment for platform dev one. It was, I think, up down to $200 or something for people to join and do it virtually because of COVID-19. We're not holding physical boot camps anymore, which it's kind of a good thing, because not COVID, but the virtual certifications, because it means that everyone can do them, and they're way more, I guess, easily accessible now. You don't need to fly to Sydney to do a boot camp or come to the Gold Coast for their boot camps and spend a week. You can take it at your own pace, watching the webinars, going back and relearning about it. Really helpful.
Yeah, that's cool. I guess that kind of links us into another thing we wanted to talk about, right? Which was how to study. Once you do pick the exam you want to do, how do you study for it, and where do you find the resources and study material? So you just mentioned the boot camp, which actually I didn't know about. That sounds quite cool. I've never done one of those. Where else do you go for when you start studying for an exam that you've booked or want to book?
So the first thing that I do is check what I need to study for. So I go to Trailhead and check the certification study guide. So I work out the breakdown of what they want. So for PD1, it's like logic and process automation, and then a couple extra breakdowns there. So I look at the exam breakdown first, work out what I need to be studying, work out where my gaps are and what I think I need to know. But speaking of, Trailhead there as well, a lot of the time Trailhead has trail mixes for all the certs that you want to take. So I go there, I take a look at all of the, for the exams that I'm studying. I know there's an administrator one and there's a platform developer one. So I find it quite helpful to go there as well and take a look. And then semi non-Salesforce related, not owned by Salesforce, but Focus on Force is hosted by a wonderful gentleman out of Australia. And he does lots of, practice questions, practice exams. And I found those really helpful in the past as well, just to gauge where my skill level's at and what portions I need to focus more on.
So to clarify, that's a website that someone provides training resources for certifications and practice questions. And there's a little fee involved for that.
Yeah, I think what have I paid in the past? I think like $19 or something for a certification.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and check. But what about you, James? Where have you studied for your numerous certifications?
It's kind of similar. I guess the first thing I do is similar to you. I look at the study guide provided by Salesforce itself, which is on Trailhead, and take a look at the content of the exam. They give I think it's like 5 sample questions on those. And that I often kind of use them as a little bit of a gauge of like, okay, how close am I to being able to take this exam already? So like if I look at the 5 and be like, oh, I know the answer, and I get them all right, then I might think, okay, I don't need to do as much study for this exam as for one where I look at those 5 and I'm like, oh, I don't know the answers to any of these. So I use that as a little bit of a gauge. And then the next stop is Trailhead, which we mentioned, and I'm sure everyone out there knows what it is, but it's a online training platform provided by Salesforce themselves. It is really fun. It gamifies learning, so you earn badges and points, and there's a big competition out there for people trying to get the most badges and points. And so I'll look on there, and as Adrian also mentioned, they have a thing called a trail mix, which is essentially where someone has gone through and picked out a number of individual trailheads and pulled them together into a big list of things to study. And so they're generally Salesforce have generally got one that they've made for certifications. So I'll favorite that one, and then maybe some other users in the community have created some as well, so I might favorite those. And then what I'll do is I'll just systematically start picking off through those trailheads. Has a side benefit because as I do it, I get more badges, which looks good as well as getting the certification.
You have, James?
Sorry?
How many badges do you have? Do you know off the top of your head?
It's in the realm. I'm not one of the crazy huge number of people, but it's like 230-ish, I think. How about you?
I hit 400, and then Salesforce updated one, so I haven't finished it again. I've gone back to 399.
Oh, 399. Yeah, so it's a great way to learn stuff. It's hands-on, so you do hands-on challenges, and it's good for me. It's kind of how I learn doing it hands-on. And then similar again to Adrian, what I'll do is I'll use some practice questions and sort of do some trailhead, do some practice questions, and then kind of using those to gauge like, okay, now I'm starting to know the answer to some and quite a few of these, and using that as a sort of a gauge to roughly how ready I am. Which I guess is another thing we were going to cover is how do you know how long to study and when you're ready. And for me, I mean, it's a hard one to answer. How long kind of depends on the exam you're doing and what your knowledge point was when you started studying for it. Like if you've been an admin as your job, but you just never got the cert for it, and you've been an admin for a few years, then you're probably whiz through it. But if you're just starting scratch from Salesforce, you've not really used it, then you're going to need to do a lot of study. So that's where I've been saying I often use those practice questions as a gauge for roughly how ready I am. And then what I do is at a certain point, I kind of draw a line and say, okay, I'm reasonably ready. So I'm just going to book the exam for 2 weeks or a month in the future. And then once you've done that, you've kind of given yourself a target. It's like, I've booked it, so it's happening. So I better, knuckle down and make sure I'm ready. How about you?
I've kind of done the opposite in certain places. So there are certain exams, and I don't recommend people go ahead and do it, but there are certain exams that I think once I've been doing it for long enough, I won't study. I'll book it and I'll take it. I guess the thought process behind it is that if I take it and I pass it on my first go, then I know that I've passed that on my own merit. Like, I can prove that I know what I'm talking about when I talk about that exam. I've passed it based on purely, it was just in my head, things that I've done, things that I know. If I don't pass it the first time, then I get the breakdown of the exam. So that tells me what areas I need to focus on so that I can go away and study on some of those areas there. If it's an exam that I haven't taken before, I want to take, and I'm just on the fence about it, then I will spend some of that time studying before. A bit like you, James, I'll book myself a certification in, and that way I've got a deadline. So forcing myself to study, because I'm also a massive procrastinator. I'll study next week. Maybe I'll do it another time. Oh no, it's, I still got X. So having that deadline there really helps me get my butt into gear and study there.
Yeah.
So I guess on that note, once you've studied and you're comfortable with studying, how do you prepare, James, to take that exam?
I'm not sure. I think I just prepare. I guess I do those practice questions. I do find practice questions are very useful to gauge how prepared you are. And I have used some from that the website you mentioned, Focus on Force, and I just find them very useful. Preparing for the exam itself, there's certain things you have to do to decide. One thing is you have to decide how you're going to do the exam. So there's two options, right? So you can do it online, or you can go to a testing center. I've done both. How about you? Have you done both as well?
I've done both, yeah. So testing centers used to be my personal preference. Not so much available that much at the moment. However, I used to find it easier to book a testing center because I wouldn't need to worry about setting anything up at home. I just go there, know that all the conditions were right and ready, and go from there.
That's what all my earlier exams I did those at testing centers. Partly because of that reason, it's kind of you don't have to worry about setting anything up. A lot of my later exams I have done with the online proctored version. And it has a lot of benefits in that you don't have to leave your house. You just kind of do your exam and then go on with the rest of your day. However, there is a certain amount of prep and potential stress that it adds to the whole day of the whole exam day. So we should probably run through some of the things you need to do to make sure that you can actually do it online. And some of the things, I'm sure I've had a few things happen that have caused issues, and I'm sure you've had a few as well.
Derailed. You mentioned, James, there at one point about setting up your biometrics. That's been such a pain for me. So for those that don't know, when you take an exam at home, prior to taking the exam, you have to install a application. I was going to call it a product then. An application on your computer that reads your face and maps out your biometric profile. That's a once-off, and then every time you go to take your exam or launch your exam online proctored after that, it has to match that initial biometric profile. So the first time I took my exam, was going to, I was down here in my office, did my biometric profile on my laptop. Now, when you take an exam from home, Salesforce doesn't like you to have things on your desk, doesn't like you to have distractions, things around. So I actually take my exam upstairs in an empty spare bedroom, which turns out has a different background and different lighting. So my biometric profile completely gave up on me. And the computer was different. So I had to contact Salesforce, get them to reset my biometric profile so that I could take it again and then launch my exam.
Yeah, and I've had similar, well, not that exact thing, but situations where your exams may have started and it won't work, and then it's just pretty stressful to have to try and contact Salesforce and sort things out. I mean, one good thing to say there is that if you do have a problem, that in my experience they've been pretty good. Like, you can press help and then someone will come online and chat with you and try and resolve your technical issue, and they'll like push your exam time out. You don't suddenly just like, oh, you weren't there, so you're done. They give you a second chance. So at least that makes it a little bit better. But I had a situation similar where my webcam, I hadn't tested it, I guess. And it's an external web, so you need to have, that's something we haven't mentioned, you need to have an external webcam, realistically. It can't be the webcam on your computer, because they need to see, Salesforce want to see everything around you, so they can make sure, I guess, you haven't got any notes just like down here below my hands, or like written on the wall or something, I don't know. So you have to have a certain degree of view from your webcam. I can't remember the exact number, but I tend to have I have an external webcam, just a cheap one that I got from on a sale, and I tend to put it on, sellotape it actually onto, I have a tripod because I take lots of pictures in my spare time, but up high, so like somewhere up here. So they basically has a view of the entire desk or table that you've got your laptop on, and they pretty much are wanting you to just have, they want to be able to see your computer, your mouse, your hands, and a certain amount of space around you, so they know that you're not somehow cheating.
They did kind of relax that rule a little bit. So because of the pandemic, they've had to make everything online prompted. So they relaxed it a little bit so that you could still use the webcam on your computer. But I've actually had instances when, even then doing it from home, they've asked me to pick up my computer and walk around the room and show them, which is really interesting. But in addition to that, James, you don't wear glasses a lot of the time. If we're going to talk about bits and pieces, those of you like me who don't have 20/20 vision, if you're wearing glasses a lot for the exam, Salesforce will also ask to check those a lot. So I wear my glasses. They've asked me to take them off. They've got a special image that pops up on the screen, actually, that shows you that you've kind of got to grab your glasses and hold them up both ways and, check what's going on with them, just to make sure that you're not cheating that way.
In case you don't have, like, I don't know, mirrors in them, and then written on the wall behind you somewhere or something.
So I guess in addition to those, there's a couple of things that, I gotchas right up. But Salesforce is also really big on distractions while you're in there. So if they hear people talking around you, they'll pause it. If there's noises, if they think you're doing something, they're going to jump and react. And James, you're like me.
Yes, let me get my prop. Hold up.
You've got a prop. While James is going and getting his prop. So Salesforce is very picky on noisy little animals.
Anyone has one of these guys, cute, but when the postman comes and you're doing an exam, he made a lot of noise, and I got stopped.
I've been stopped with somebody here as well a few times before, haven't I, miss? Yeah. So if you do have dogs, children, anything running around in the background, would also suggest that you give them a toy or something to play with so that they're not going to interrupt, because Salesforce will pause I don't necessarily know, you don't sound like you're giving me answers half the time, but Salesforce just want to make sure.
Yeah. Even if you, I've been stopped just because I was trying to think of an answer and I had my hand sort of like this on my face and they asked me to stop. I guess maybe I could have it written on my hand or something. I don't know. So yeah, that's just a few things to consider on things that you need to have prepped before the exam. So you need to have that webcam with a good view of an empty desk, and then things to consider whilst it's going on. If you don't want to be distracted, try and make sure there's no big noises that are going to happen, or there's a glass and the glasses thing, things like that.
I think we've been talking for a while, James. So I guess once you've got that exam, whether you've passed or whether you fail, do you have a ritual that you do afterwards? Something to celebrate, to drown your sorrows? Is there anything that you do afterwards?
Probably should, but not really. I guess maybe that evening I'll like treat myself to something like a beer or some sweet treat, probably. I guess internally here at SalesFix, we try to celebrate it. So we'll post a screenshot of our shiny new certificate and everyone will say, well done. Do you have something you do?
A wise friend once told me to always celebrate with cake. Whether you pass, it's happy cake. If you fail, it's drowning your sorrows cake. But always celebrate with cake. A friend told me, and I actually think it's quite good advice because, I guess, acknowledging the fact that it's happened, and if you've passed, happy cake.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess, we're pretty much done. There. Covered everything we wanted to talk to. I thought a good way to leave it would just be to have give one last tip maybe to everyone out there who may be about to take an exam or thinking about taking an exam. So mine would be when you're doing the exam itself, as you probably know, it's multiple choice. And even if you come to a question where you're like, oh, I don't think I'm going to know the answer to this as you're reading it, just really read through those 4 options, because it just with a little bit of knowledge of how Salesforce works, which I'm sure you have, you'll be able to knock probably 2 of them out, as it's almost definitely not that one, or I really don't think it's that one. And then you're down to 50-50. So that's not bad odds.
I definitely agree. As someone who's helped Salesforce write some of these exams, 2 of them are generally way out of the park. So if you can narrow it down to 2, I would also suggest as well, if you're taking an exam, if you don't know the answer within the first few seconds, pick the most right one that you think, mark the question for review and move on.
Yeah.
So I guess get through the exam and then start going back to those ones for review. Don't sit there for 10 whole minutes.
Yeah.
There she goes. Don't sit there for 10 whole minutes trying to think of one question, because then you're chewing down.
Sorry, I'm going to have to pause you. There's a noise. I've got to pause your exam. Sorry.
So, don't focus on one question too much. If you don't know it within the first few seconds, read it. It's not immediately obvious. Pick one, mark it for review and move on. Once you get to the end, then at least you can start gauging how well you think you did through the exam. Because if you've gotten all the way to the end and it's just those 1 or 2 questions, don't stress out about it. There's a high possibility if you were solid on the rest of them that you've passed anyway. But
I definitely agree. Don't convalesce on one question for ages. Just pick what you think might be right, mark it for review at the end. Just have a quick review of all those ones that you've marked to come back to. And generally the pass mark is between 68 and 75. It depends on the exam.
63. I found a pass mark for exams that are 63. So that's where coming in and checking that study guide first that's on the Salesforce website really helps, because you'll start to know what the pass mark is there.
Yeah. Cool. So I think that's us, right? yeah, happy exam taking for everyone out there. And I guess, yeah, reach out. I'm sure we can help you with any questions you might have if you want to reach out to either of us.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks for joining us. Good luck on your next exam. If you've got any questions or anything, we'll get our marketing manager to put my Twitter handle or something in this. Thanks, everyone. Bye.